Hello, friends, and welcome to Knights Arena Valorant Challengers North America. A great first split and a mid-season face-off of dreams, and now just one more best of 5 to determine our grand winner going on forward. Exciting stuff ahead of us, and I cannot wait to see these two teams in action. If you want to be involved on the conversation, whether it's prediction or getting in a fan zone question for the end of the day, or if you have caps that you also want to show up on broadcast as mine comes over to try and steal the spotlight, make sure to join the conversation in our fan zone, pks.gg/fanzone. We have a lot to talk about going on for today, though, so I want to bring Bach and Tanner Metro onto the desk. It's been a really exciting time. The split one's been amazing. The face-off, I mean, twists and turns at any point in the road, Tanner, and everybody dressed up for the occasion today.
Yeah, I mean, how could we not? I think it would have been very poetic, obviously, to see M80 versus the guard again, running it back time and time again. That was for you, Pressy. It would have been poetic, but we don't get that. Instead, we get this G2 team that has been on an absolute terror against one of our Titans who have proved over and over that they are the Titans. I couldn't be excited, more excited, and a best of 5, I think, is the best way to do it.
One of the big things that I think a lot of people came into today expecting was that G2 or that guard versus M80 match in the grand finals. I think early split expectations was that was what we were going to get. G2 proved a lot of people wrong, even after a rough start to the playoffs. They go down into the lower bracket and they fight through a gauntlet to get here. And even just yesterday, I mean, that was a very difficult day yesterday, having to play back-to-back best-of-3s after playing a late-night best-of-3 the night prior in their match against Moist Moguls. I got to give credit to G2 for having the resilience to fight through that lower bracket the way they did.
Yeah, especially being knocked down so early by the likes of Oxygen Esports, who they got to take revenge on later on. This is the difficult run because you have to make sure at any point in the road you're all set. And we've seen a couple of stumbles, but G2, they've been getting stronger. They've been leveling up and being able to show that going up against the guard. I'm so excited now, more than ever, more than I would have been after seeing them in that first day of our mid-season face-off. This G2 that we now have going up against M80 Bach. This was, either way, how our finals were going to end up, were going to be spectacular, but I'm so excited for G2 to show us what they got.
I mean, we knew we were getting M80 or the guard. At least one of those teams would make it into the grand finals, and I think there was pretty much a coin toss on people's minds when we talk about who's going to win that one, because at the end of the season, at the end of the split, during the group stages, we see the guard beat M80 2-0. I think both teams kind of recognized that they weren't sure that match had a ton of value, given that M80 was already #1 in the seeding. They could not be caught by guard, even if they got shut out both games. I think they needed to win like maybe one round at best to guarantee the #1 seed. So it really wasn't M80 needing to win that. It's not to say they didn't try or they sandbagged. It just meant that the game had no weight. So as a result, we come into that upper bracket final. That's when we get to see what these teams look like when everything is on the line. M80 comes out victorious. They defeat the guard 2-0 or 2-1, excuse me. And then the way that game went, it felt very similar to the game that the guard played against G2 in that lower bracket. Both times the guard was like right at the finish line, just couldn't quite take it over. And you got to give it to M80 and G2 for taking advantage of that. A good team will always capitalize on your mistakes, and that's what they both did. That's why they're both here in this grand final.
This grand final is going to be such a great one to spectate. And talking a little bit more on M80 and kind of narrowing in a little bit on the squad, it's one that there's been a lot of positives about. Going into our mid-season face-off, talking about the two teams to be watching out for, which could be considered the two strongest teams that we have here in Challengers, trying to move on into the Americas to try and get those points. M80, Tanner, has always been one of the ones that's been at the top of the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, they cemented themselves at the top. Bach mentioned it, right? The one series that they lost, I don't know how much stock they were really putting into that one. And yeah, now we get to see this #1 team in Group B. I think, again, poetic that they get to play the #1 in Group A. But you see a lot in these highlight reels, a lot of Koala Noob. And I know we talk about this guy a lot, but everybody has been really coming together, especially when Koala did not live up to his expectations, and I think fan expectations in the first map of that series against the guard. In that series alone, Nismo came out of that one with 34 assists across the 3 maps. So it's not just a Koala show. It's proving that they can do it when Koala can't. And I think that is showing us that they are really turning into a well-rounded team. Or if they were always a well-rounded team, they've really started to prove it.
One of the things I love is that all split long, people have wanted to see G2 play the guard or M80. They wanted to see M80 play the guard, and we got all of that here in the mid-season face-off. We got an M80 guard game, we got a G2 guard game, and now we get our G2 M80 game. So we get to see a little bit of everything. Even the players themselves are excited. Koala Noob saying, I have goosebumps thinking about it. Tomorrow is going to be so fun. I love the fact that everyone comes into this one with a ton of intensity and energy.
Yeah, when the players are excited for the match, this is something they're looking forward to. Even yesterday, the Guard and G2 going up against each other was one that the players anticipated that would be a good series, and one that was really enjoyable to watch. So the fact, too, that saying you have goosebumps and you've never been so excited for a match, I mean, Koala Noob doesn't really tweet these things out, so that, I think, just holds so much weight.
And to that point, I think there were nerves in that rematch against the Guard. When I see this tweet yesterday coming in today for Koala Noob, I think he's going to live up to the standards. He tweeted after that Guard series, hey, I didn't play to the best of my ability, but my team helped me refine my confidence as the series went along. I think we're going to be without that Koala Noob. I think guns blazing completely for this duelist.
I mean, look at the picture of Koala Noob that we've been flying on all these graphics. You look at that picture and he doesn't look like a man of many emotions.
Yeah.
So to see the emotion come out here, even in our post-game interviews, he's very reserved at times. It seems like he's very calculated. Some would say he's like as cold as ice in the game. And as a result, maybe that creates this perception of his personality being that way. But I like to see this coming out from him, this like excitement, this energy, this vibe coming in from Koala Noob that maybe most people don't expect to see, because typically he does come off as maybe a little bit more calculated.
Mm-hmm.
And now going up against G2 for today. G2, this has been such a fun team to watch from the start, because there is definitely reservations that people had about this team at the beginning, considering the history, considering a little ups and downs. And then when they got knocked into that lower bracket right away in the mid-season face-off, it's one that when we've talked about them at times, it's been, okay, like, we need to see them come out. But I think this last little play here, I've really enjoyed watching them play. I've enjoyed these mid rounds. I've enjoyed the calling. I think this has been really fun to watch them keep going through hurdles, pushing through adversity, and make it into our grand finals.
Yeah, and not just their run to get here, but even just the last couple of days, it has been, they did a triathlon and then a marathon right afterwards is what it felt like. And I talked about M80 being well-rounded, but we get a lot of that. If you go back and watch the matches yesterday from G2, it was not easy by any means, and it took a complete team effort. We had games where Penny was doing things like this. The game against the Guard on Split, after they had already lost Split, I was so worried to see what G2 was going to be bringing to the table. And the player that topped the leaderboards was a support player in Penny alone to really, you know, playing kind of an awkward role, because we know Penny to be a duelist, but getting the job done. And then we see the same kind of emotions, right? To be excited about this matchup as alone. This tweet coming from Whippy, which there's a lot of plugs, so everybody's getting their screen time right here if you want to run into all of the ads. But basically Whippy is saying, hey, I'm excited to play with my former teammates, right? Xander with version 1, Nismo with Ghost when Whippy was trying for that squad. So outside of the competitiveness, this one does seem like it's going to be a lot of fun alone, just to be able to share the servers between these two teams.
And again, this is another player a lot like Koala, who maybe people don't get to see his personality all that much. For a long time, I think Whippy kind of dodged spotlight. I actually said it yesterday. I was like, I forgot what Whippy looked like. Because a lot of time, like, we don't really see pictures of him. You know, he's not like other guys who are super active, like taking selfies or video or going on social media and like promoting their brand. He just comes in and he plays the game and he does a great job of it. So I love to see him and Koala being these players who are like, oh man, I can't wait. I'm super excited. The emotion's at an all-time high for me coming into this final.
And looking ahead at our finals, like to always try and poke out a couple of players to really keep attention to, and people that we've highlighted a lot kind of tend to be duelists as well, but there's also, Bach, when you're looking further into the duelists and the efforts and where they're going to be making that impact, be so crucial and so important.
All right, so I need everyone to put their thinking caps on, get a monocle. There's a reason I'm wearing suspenders today, because I want you to think I'm smart. This is very nerdy stat stuff, so I promise I will explain as best I can. If you forget, you can see me after class. I will help you. This is Koala Noob and Oxy's stats specifically against supporting roles. That would be your sentinels and your controllers. I understand initiators can classify in that realm too, but it's a little bit more murky. So this is really just their stats against controllers and sentinels. When you look at the two, obviously Oxy has a higher sample size, but what's impressive is Koala Noob, who we've praised all season long, has actually struggled against those roles. Oxy, on the other hand, has done fantastic. Why is that important? It's because whenever we talk about duelists, we talk about kills and stats and look how good the numbers are, but we don't ever really talk about impact. What does that kill mean? Who did they kill? How does that change the round? So Oxy is the one who's taking away your smokes. He's taking away your anchor. He's making it difficult for you to play in post plants because you no longer have the damage from your mollies or your nano swarms. All of that's been taken out of the equation because Oxy is in the server, whereas Koala Noob, he's falling to those players. That's kind of the role of a duelist when we really step back and look at it. Yes, you're the one that's supposed to go in first. You're supposed to break timings, but the goal would be take one of them with you. If you die, cool. Not as big of a deal as long as you get that one player to help make the round that much harder for your opponent. That's what Oxy is doing really well. And Koala Noob has surprisingly struggled, and we've seen that in some of their games. We saw that when they played the guard previously and even in that upper bracket final. Koala Noob definitely had a hard time dealing with teams who have players in those positions that are very strong.
And I want to just touch on that point where you mentioned the sample size is very vast, right? Because of the rounds played for Oxy. But you would assume that would mean there's less chance, right, for him to be positive in any of these stats. You would almost think that because Koala Noob has done it a little bit less, he's going to have higher stats. It's like Brett Favre, who threw the most interceptions but played the most games. But it's a complete inverse. It's Oxy having more rounds, more opportunities to fail, but he continues to come out on top.
Now, you mentioned the inverse. Let's look at the inverse for this statistic and why I wanted to highlight it coming into today. Because this is the support roles for both of these teams against opposing duelists. We've praised some teams coming into the mid-season face-off for their ability to shut down an opposing duelist. The Guard was one of those teams, and you may not have noticed, but G2 is as well. Their stats actually put them towards the top of categories in this realm. Yes, again, more rounds, understood, but like Tanner just said, the growth of sample size means there's more likely to be a deviation into the negative, not the positive. 24 and 18 KD for supports against duelists. If you look at just the average, this means John QT and Xander on the one side, Xander who's been playing lights out all mid-season face-off against duelists, versus Dapper and Whippy on the other side. Dapper also having an incredible mid-season face-off. We see Whippy stepping up as well, looking at their series the other day. This is why this is important. You have a Koala Noob who struggles against players who play those roles well, and you have a G2 who has players that play those roles well. Yeah. And I want to frame this up this way because I think coming into today, a lot of people thought, this is easy for M80, another win. G2 isn't nearly as good. Group B was stronger than Group A. That's been the stereotypes of the entire split. But after digging into this very geeky and somewhat nuanced stat, I started to go, you know what? I actually think G2 can win. I know that I was maybe a little bit more critical on them even yesterday, but after digging into that, I'm like, if they shut down Koala, that is a big part of M80's attack. If he's not a part of the equation, G2 suddenly have a huge leg up, and they have the skills to do it. They have Dapper and Whippy consistently shutting that player down.
Yeah, definitely will be really interesting going into that now for how this could play out, because also looking into this, it was like G2's gone through so much, but M80 are M80. But then after you put on that thinking cap and look into it a little bit further, like, I don't know, I'm so intrigued with how this is going to be playing out. But G2 does need to get over that hurdle that is going to be the map can ban going into this, because M80, with the fact that they made this upper bracket run, we'll be able to get both of these bans. So now all of a sudden, when we look ahead at the map pool for G2, this is where you're going to be then taking that disadvantage. Because there's the two bans for M80 though, which is going to be absolutely no surprise with this Lotus and Split. Absolutely none. It'll be G2 to pick Ascent up first.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, and I think a lot of people don't come in today understanding what's going on with those first two. So coming into today, typically in a best of 5 coming from the upper bracket, the team gets a map advantage, so they're already up 1-0. Instead, for this event, you get a double ban, which I'm gonna be honest, that's tough for G2 to swallow that pill, because their map pool is definitely not as deep, and we know no one wants to play them on Split. Even with their struggles yesterday, no one wants to play them on Split. And M80 has no desire to play Lotus. So not only do they get rid of your best map, they get rid of their worst map. That gives M80 a massive advantage coming into the remaining map pool, but there's still question marks on some of these maps for M80 because we haven't even really seen much of M80 on the rest of the map pool.
And I want to mention, too, that the map pool, even without Split for G2, this map pool tells me that we're probably going to 5, right? I don't think Ascent is a horrible pick. Obviously, G2 don't want to play Fracture, so M80 are going to take them there, which, you know, that very well could be 1-to-1 tied up. I think Icebox is going to be their biggest hurdle, because I think M80 brings a strong Icebox, but if G2 can get it done there, their Pearl might look a little wishy-washy, and then we do eventually see ourselves landing in Haven. So I think this is, you know, all things considered, with M80 getting both bans, the best you could have hoped for. I think G2 have shown us enough, but it's going to be map 3 where they really have to show us. They really have to dig deep and try and push us into those championship rounds.
And it's been a long couple of days for G2 as well, having battled to get out to this point. So going into a best of 5 for the day, I mean, they've talked about the marathon that they've been going through, and this is that last stretch going on to today. But being able to go through this lower bracket, more maps in, get more rounds in, figure out their shortcomings and stuff, there's a lot of stuff that they'll be able to have fixed going into this now.
There's just as much research that can be done against them, though, too, because M80 has been able to sit back and watch the way that G2 plays on more than one occasion. G2's got a lot of play, not even just in the group stage, but also here in the mid-season face-off. A lot of games going 3 maps, plenty for them to look at. I mean, we were preparing a graphic, and we pulled it temporarily, but I think we can still show it, that showcases G2's match history over the entirety since the group stages, too. Tanner, I know you were the one that prepared this, but ultimately, this is impressive because I think people forget how strong they've actually been. They're just looking at the last few weeks and going like, oh yeah, they're pretty good. But they look back to that Turtle Troop loss, or they look to that Oxygen loss in the upper bracket quarterfinals. Really, those are the only 2 losses they had all season.
I think it is important to point out here too, just to make sure people are on the same thing, that this 1-0, we're talking about series, not maps. So just to make sure we're on the same page. But no, when you take a look like this, it really becomes really apparent how impressive what G2's been able to do is.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, yeah, this does look a little strange when you first look at it. People are thinking, like, what do you mean 0-1s? Like, we didn't have best of ones. But they've been collecting heads. It was, you know, a loss early in the split, I guess a little later in the split, I think week 4 against Turtle Troop. And then we jump into, you know, our mid-season face-off, which at the start of it, it's double elimination. Maybe you don't think the pressure is that high, but there is still a lot of pressure, especially on our younger players, to perform. And I think we saw a little bit of that from Oxy. So we see that loss, that series loss to Oxygen early. But since then, I mean, we showed it yesterday in the rematch, the Oxy stats versus Oxygen versus Oxy moving forward. And all of that pressure, all of that weight has been relieved. I would imagine you give a lot of that to the veterans on the team, you know, talking to Oxy and making sure that he feels comfortable in just playing his game. And that's exactly what he's done. From lower round 1 all the way to grand finals. And I think this win means so much more to G2 because they've had to face that adversity and because they've beat it every single time.
I think there is a chip on their shoulder to a certain degree to prove themselves. And part of that comes probably from failures of the past. You look at 2 of the players on this team coming from the old Sentinels roster that started to sort of deteriorate over time. A version 1 team as well. If you remember in stage 1 of VCT last year, version 1 was hot-handed. They were the team to watch. And then in stage 2, they were gone. They dropped out of the playoffs 0-2. They had a pretty rough run, if I'm remembering correctly. And then they just sort of faded into obscurity and watched their roster get picked apart as players got pulled onto new teams and had greater experiences moving forward in the future until it eventually just kind of fizzled out. So I think a lot of these guys, they've got a lot to prove. And then you've got Oxy. You mentioned it. Oxy's young. So young, in fact, that Oxy's in school. Like, you forget that Oxy is a student first and an athlete second. or I guess I should say a competitor second, because people hate that word when we're talking about games. But I use that as a student-athlete reference. It's hard to balance that schedule, and the demands of gaming are incredible. Valorant practices run very long, and we even saw that in that day where they had the triple best of 3, and we were going till late at night. He was like, oh man, I barely got any sleep. I had to wake up and go to school the next day, and then I'd come home and just grind until we get into our next match, and I got to run 2 best of 3s back to back. Like, there was an exhaustion factor that maybe could contribute to even slightly lower stats yesterday, but now he's well rested. He's coming into a grand final where he's prepared to show the world what he's capable of.
Which always feels so bad. I mean, it's so exciting when you see a player that's so young be so good at the game, doing the things, but then having to balance the school, having to balance, you know, competing and now being in finals is definitely a lot. So regardless of how today goes, regardless of anything else, just huge kudos just to Oxy for that. But now we can head at the series. I feel like with our first map, it's so important for both of these teams to be able to get off on the right foot, because yes, this is a series that has potential to go the 5 maps, but I think if something starts to go haywire, Tanner, that all of a sudden that this could get really sticky really fast for one of these teams.
Yeah, I think Ascent is a good place to start because we saw a couple of different looks. I know that M80 also saw those same looks, but when I'm looking at 4G2, Gus mentioned it. Gus kind of talked about the getting their steps in, and that's what G2, when they were doing that on Ascent, it was working well. They were pushing players for late lurks through mid, deep into spawns. They were even making plays where they were selling these B crunches, but then the players were just pushing through mid all the way and finishing on the A site. Obviously, M80 are going to be ready for that. But what I do like from series to series, we got a little bit with Oxygen Esports, where Mitch talked about being in their heads a little bit about map picks, map bans, and, you know, if teams leave things up, you know, do we want to re-pick that? G2 lost on Split, a map that they were 4-0, you know, to start the day yesterday. Yeah. And then they go right back to it, right? So you can see that G2 aren't necessarily worried about the counter-stratting, and they have more faith in their ability and Shazam and the rest of the team to IGL or co-IGL to make these mid-round calls that'll eventually find what works, because that's what happened on Ascent against the Guard yesterday.
I know when we talk to these players in the past, too, one of the things they often say is we weren't really thinking about that. We came into today to play our own game. We weren't really worrying about what our opponent was going to do. But I do think not starting on Split, it just makes things a little bit more uncomfortable for G2. That was kind of like a good warm-up map for them. That was a way for them to get heated up because they were so good on it in comparison to everybody else. And M80, we haven't seen Split from them yet. So it would have been a great way for them to kickstart the series if they had been able to get it through. But unfortunately, that gets denied. So now they have to move to Ascent, and we've seen them play Ascent. It's not amazing, but it's not bad either. I mean, you can remember that game against the Guard. It came down to a 1v3 clutch for Dapper. That could have gone into overtime. We could be looking at a Guard M80 series here if just a few rounds go differently.
Yeah, honestly.
And I think in general, that might be the storyline of their Ascent. It's very close, but we also talked about G2. They play to the level of their opponent. We looked at them during the group stages, struggled against teams that on paper they should potentially beat, but then excelled against teams that no one expected them to beat. And every time they came in as the underdog, even against teams they already beat, like Oxygen or Moist, they win. They come out on top. So I think ultimately coming into today, yeah, they might be the underdog, and that could be the underdog buff they need to get them over the hurdle of M80.
They do need to return to the G2 that beat Moist Moguls, the G2 that took a first map off of the Guard, because Dapper said it in the interview, and I'm surprised that we didn't mention it, but they do start relatively slow. So I said map through is going to be the hurdle, but we're also seeing a minor speed bump here on Ascent. G2 need to come out of the gates hot if they're going to beat this M80 squad.
Well, it's time to see if they can, as it's time to head into our agent select with our casters, Dust and Shift for map number 1.
A wonderful set of segments right there, Des. My goodness. I love seeing a lot of that team break down the nerding out phase of Bach. Well done on that one. I'm Michael Schiff. With me, I've got Dust. Brother, this is more than just a lot of lead into what we had from the desk. This is a high-stakes matchup for both dollars as well as points. We got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, again, we got a $30,000 prize pool on the line. Winner taking $11K. The loser today will take home $6,000. So a pretty big difference in cash there between winning the grand finals and a loss. And also for G2, this is a chance to leapfrog the Guard and become the number 2 ranked team in the region, whereas M80 will hold the number 1 ranking no matter what happens in this game. But again, certainly they want to prove that they're number 1 in the region. They want to get that extra cash, and so obviously they're going to come in here guns blazing. As we see the compositions get selected, we see that double controller, double initiator coming out of M80 here. on this map, which is a little bit, I guess, triple initiator, excuse me.
Yeah, triple, yeah.
Yeah, triple initiator. So this is the same thing we've been seeing them do. This is actually no different. Whereas on the G2 side of things, again, not really seeing anything jump off the page that looks any different to me. Same double initiator setup as always.
Okay. So it's pretty much as expected. You heard the conversation about G2 not avoiding going to Ascent, even though there's been a ton of film on them. Same setup for the compositions. We've got M80, G2, VCL North America, mid-season face-off, grand finals. Dust, let's get it on.
Indeed, let us, as we might see a little bit of an early skirmish here at B lobby as KO utility is being exchanged from both sides and orb now being collected by Dapper from G2, trying to build that lockdown as quickly as possible. M80 trying to get a little bit of an advanced position from Catwalk to try to get some intel and maybe even a fight over near mid and B link, but it's to no avail as we see G2 now kind of just pivot over into A lobby to set up for an attack while Dapper kind of plays the rotator blocker position, I guess you could say, out in the middle.
And this hit looks like it will probably come right through the front door. Shazam queuing up a recon bolt. You've got Dapper watching for any lurks through mid, which he may make contact here with Koala Noob. EU just above him. There's the breakthrough, and Koala Noob is going to get caught off guard here. Saw the pistol, I'm sure, did Dapper. And now, oh, wait, maybe he didn't see the pistol. A little bit of conversation happening, and he misses a chance on the long flank. Of course, this will be known by G2 with this plant. It just comes down to, can they actually isolate in time? Because we've got two members for G2 with these pistols, still looking for Koala Noob. He's killing a ton of time, but finally the contact is made. And now G2 can focus largely towards the front, where M80's retake is all coming through from the top side of heaven. Still a ton of utility that could be spent, mostly including a fault line, which comes through right on the cross-through door. Xander uses that nicely, plus also flashes. Nismo not quite able to get anything as he tries to clear out L. Xander for trades, but the numbers still stay with G2. 3v2 situation. Trade starting to come back for M80. Xander trying to hop on. There's the double shock dart. Halfway through the defuse. Shock dart starts to land. EU gets another elimination, though. And now it's just down to one, with Shazam finalizes, and with that, G2 take the opening pistol.
Yeah, really well done there from G2, just being able to, you know, throw some pressure over at B, keep those defenders interested, pivot back into just a really nice set piece on the A site. Dapper, meanwhile, huge on that rotation through middle to pick up on Koala Noob, cut off that flanking option, really force that retake through just a couple of tight choke points. And I had to give credit to M80. I mean, that was a great fault line for the initial frag on the Switch player, but after that, that double under heaven setup from G2 was just a little too strong for them to break. And Shazam winds up being able to clutch it out there from safety in the line position. So 1-0. We do see M80 investing a little bit here, though. They pick up a Marshall and a Sheriff. One-way smoke on the corner. Quad trying to still stick around and play it. But he gets run down by Oxy, and that's the A side open.
Shazam does get taken down to pretty low HP, but it's just classics with one Sheriff to follow up here for M80. One of the things we have to keep in mind here as well for M80's defense, we've seen this in the past, with no Sentinel, it will likely be Koala Noob watching a lot of this mid-alleyway push. That time, not so much, looking for the aggressive angle. So G2, pretty healthy here on site. 3 rifles, the Marshall collected, and still a Ghost. M80 looking to try to get a wave coming here through topside heaven. Marshall shots spamming, not quite able to connect. Knife will start to suppress and get a read on where exactly this retake hit is coming from. The first contest is going to be off the drop. Xander dealt with. Nismo on the opposite corner does take down one, but ultimately clean stuff from G2 in the second.
Yeah, indeed. As just kind of taking a look at these two teams on this map for a second, it has been M80 going a 3-1 record on this map. Their only loss is to the Guard. They've beaten Moist Moguls, Disguised, and TSM, and they've typically been able to do very well on the defensive side of this map, usually averaging somewhere near 8 rounds defensively. It's been their attacking side that sometimes let them down, although they did have a huge attacking half against Moist Moguls earlier on in this tournament in the upper bracket semifinals. For G2, undefeated on this map, 4-0 record, including a win over the Guard yesterday, of course. Very tight one. I do think the Guard kind of crumbled in that one, if I'm being honest, but G2, to their credit, were, you know, able to play it really well and able to take it away from one of the best teams in the region. So
something about their ice, man.
Yeah, so point is, both these teams very strong on this map. Yeah. We should be on kind of an equal battleground in that regard.
Yeah, the ice that G2 has shown in this map has been pretty incredible, not just yesterday with the 4 rounds in a row to kind of finish things off, but they've also survived through multiple overtimes versus FaZe, 13-9s and 13-11s versus Breakthrough and Oxygen, but still perfect through the split. As we will be into the full buy here for the side of M80. Just 1 light armor, pardon me, 2 light armors for both Koala and Nismo, and this will be our first look for G2 trying to hit over towards B main. Just a star in their way. with EU's Fade kind of still lurking.
Yeah, all the utilities starting to pour over here, and Oxy catches EU in the face as he dashes in for the switch and closes off the market access. He's going to bring the spike into the B site here, looking to set G2 up on not really, you know, any kind of weird situation. I mean, yeah, Penny has the Marshall, but this is still a pretty much full buy around here, and they've been able to get this site with ease, and now M80 must retake a man down.
Look at this alarm bot placement deep over toward the defensive entrance. We got a double stack in B main as well, which will be difficult for M80 to deal with. They do have a lot of utility, 2 flashes, a fragment, and both flash points out of John Cutie. There's the gravity well, and yeah, Quality just not able to expect that there's going to be a double stack here, and there is no way M80 get into this. So they will back away, save the remaining 3 rifles, and G2 will cruise to a 3-0 start, only dropping 1.
Yeah, and it's good to see Oxy already getting off to a great start here. I know that he did struggle in one of their series against Oxygen earlier in the mid-season face-off, but outside of that, of course, during the split, he was in the top 3 for ADR, ACS, and kills per round, as well as top 5 in first kills per round. So far in the mid-season face-off shift, Oxy has remained in the top 5 for ACS, ADR, and first kills per round, and he's just outside the top 5 for kills per round. So he has been just a mega consistent star for this G2 squad throughout the split and now throughout this mid-season face-off. He's already at 5 kills through 3 rounds. So yeah, good if you're a G2 fan to see your star player, you know, racing off the starting blocks already and putting together some big rounds. He's had some big entries to help convert.
Yeah, it's wild, too, because going back to the series yesterday in the lower final, you would look at just the overall KDs and say, oh, he finished -9 in the bottom of the scoreboard for G2, but he was a part of 30 first blood engagements, won 13 of them. So, and he's all over the place. Xander this time just on the outside of his Nebula. Allows a double to come through. Nismo follows up, so it's a 3-for-1 trade. Huge numbers here for M80 in a key round where they still have a Marshall and a Guardian in play.
And that spike is down in a 4 position, and G2 have no choice but to try to see if they can find a way to grab it back. But such a great timing there from Nismo. Is going to catch Dapper. Again, the spike's still down. Shazam fights back. He's got a hat trick going on here. He knows that they're both there with that owl drum, but again, how do you fight this? I mean, it's just they're facing you in such an awkward way. No real chance to get a 1v1 out of that. And so M80, with their aggression on A lobby with the one way, this time around it pans out. Yep. They're able to get their first round on the board.
Key round as well, because you lose that one, you're immediately into another save, and it starts to get ugly quick. So G2 will still be healthy enough to, of course, be able to full purchase. You also have the blades that are earned up by Oxy, where Xander will have the orbital, the Cosmic Divide here in this round with Nismo and EU pretty darn close to their ults as well.
Yeah, worth noting that this is the first time G2 has actually started attack on Ascent. All their other games, they started on defense and were able to build up at least 7 rounds, typically. And then on the attacking side, though, they were able to get that 6 or plus rounds to get the dubs. Again, they're undefeated on this map, so just kind of keep that in mind as we got Oxy on a Stinger Bladestorm combo here. Again, a lot of early A pressure, and Whitby wins the battle, while I catch Stapper lurking out through middle. So a little bit of a retaliation.
Some good information behind that, though, as well, with that tag not going on to Quality. Knives are out. Good flash. G2 uses that nicely to capitalize. And a couple of tags into the right bicep of another. Quality not. Oh, and with that, John Cutie gets absolutely shredded, leaving EU by himself. No chance to get in towards Tree, nor consider the 1v4, and G2 is off to a fiery start, giving an answer to Tanner's question of which G2 would we catch here in the first handful of rounds.
Again, I do feel like G2 do try to usually play more of a slower default style on average, but I feel like this is their strength. When they decide to play an up-tempo style and they go for these faster pace hits, I feel that's where they actually truly shine, because they just are able to enable Oxy so well with their utility, and Oxy is so fearless and decisive, and his aim is so true. He's able to have so much impact on, you know, creating space for his team and just entering sites and getting man advantages, and he is on a roll already on this map when it comes to first kills. I don't think he's lost an opening duel yet.
I was about to say, every first blood he's been able to be a part of, he's been on the right side of the kill feed, so
yeah,
a good start for him. Also on top of that, Shazam's off to just a 1-death high kill start too. Those were your 2 bottom fraggers yesterday in the series in the lower final. So if G2's winning without them, quote unquote,
right,
imagine what this series could look like if they play like this for the rest of the night.
Yeah, the engine of G2 really has been fueled by Whippy, Oxy, and actually Dapper. Dapper's had a crazy turnaround this year compared to last year. And actually Dapper is up there, statistically speaking, for this mid-season face-off. He's in the top 10 in almost every category you could think of. So he has been phenomenal for G2 in the Sentinel role, particularly on anchoring sites defensively. And G2 are able to get some early mid control here and kind of feint some market pressure, but they're backing down like they maybe want to split A. And this is where M80 are gamble stacking with these pistols, and they're correct. This could get nasty.
EU's going to have first contact. He has the Sheriff. Null command will be spent. There's the opening Sheriff shots. Fault line also coming through, just trying to delay this a little while longer, and there will be a knock on towards Penny. Smoke will come through, pushing forward is Oxy. Good reveal coming out. It only takes a little bit of chip damage off the Nano Swarm. Shot still landing for M80 though, and all of a sudden we have ourselves into a 2v2 situation. Penny brought back into the action. Nightfall earned and immediately spent, but the spike has been picked up, and with that, a quick rotation to B's underway.
Yeah, G2 started to feel the heat on that one, decided they didn't want to touch the stove. They're running all the way back to B with this spike, but it's still not going to be easy because it's a 2-on-2, and M80 have picked up 2 rifles. Now, they are a little bit lower on HP, and they have no armor, so that's the one thing kind of playing in G2's favor, but Penny also has no armor, so this is going to be a close one. This lockdown will at least slow the retake down a little bit and give them a time to settle in on the site.
But it is a little early, though. There's going to be plenty of time here for M80 to possibly pop this null command and then commit in with full utility out of EU. There's a lot of ways they could try to break down this post plant. Prowler will go first. Nothing through the alleyway. Sentry turret's playing as a third defender on top of the stacked boxes. Second Prowler out. Haunt also not going to reveal anything. You should know at this point that they're all in the back. The fragment will separate them from left to right. Time becomes a bit of an issue. You've got to go after M80. First kill here for Penny. Dapper trying to hold on. He's got the clock to his name. And then Nismo finds the kill, but enough clock had been eliminated off the board to allow the clutch to still come through. And both Nismo and EU will not be able to get away with their lives.
And I mean, you wonder if it does count to that lockdown just a little bit. I mean, it killed some clock. Like you said, I thought it was a little bit early, and you were absolutely spot on. I mean, the utility was perfect. I feel like EU and Nismo gave themselves the best chance possible to win this round, just based on how they cleared out the site. They were able to use process elimination to figure out that both were that back boathouse, and seemed like they were going to get it done, but just not quite enough time. And so G2 now up 5-1. They are really on a roll right now. Economy is very fragile for M80. If they lose this round, they're back to saving, and G2 could be up to 7-1. I mean, that's what we're looking at here right now.
I would say this is a high-stakes round right here. Kind of a must-win for M80 just to set some sort of tone. And if you think they lose this round, probably a timeout comes out here. Koala looking to get aggressive. Operator shot will work out. Shock Dart doesn't quite flush him through. Second opportunity, but no. Koala will respect the play from Oxy. And with that play coming over, the Haunt is the only thing trying to delay this. And how about this? G2 will hit the brakes a little bit, try to isolate John, who does take down 2 before falling. And that puts significant numbers over to M80's favor.
Yeah, a beautiful defense in the back line for M80 there, and also a brilliant bait and switch inside B lobby to get the opening pick. And they now find themselves in a 4 versus 2. As Oxy unable to get the trade on Koala, he was able to escape, and he's now posted up in the back of the B sites. There's still a little bit of time left on the clock. That's really all that's favoring G2 right now. They're running low on utility, and they're running out of men to make things happen. EU watching for them to peek through this smoke to the double stack box. It all come down to timing, whether he or Whippy will be able to shoot first. Whippy able to find the frag. And Koala misses his first one. Now he's a little bit of trouble, but the shorty's out, and it's getting work done.
Is there anybody better with the shorty than Koala Noob? I feel like we often see these shots come through. Whoa! What in the world? Koala Noob just dashes into his death. Last shot out for Whippy will connect for the headshot, but it's the fragment to finish it off.
I have never seen a moment more like a clotheslining in this game than that right there. That man's neck snapped, bro. Like he was trying to break the 100-yard dash record or something like that, and just got absolutely run through the ringer. That was a wild headshot. Certainly got to applaud the effort there from G2, battling from a disadvantage, but in the end, M80 get the job done. They avoid economic disaster. Now we're in kind of a situation where it's pivoted. G2's now the more vulnerable ones with credits. And the alt advantage lies with M80 here.
Even with the eliminations found, M80 are still stuck on a lot of light armors. Plenty of ultimates that could come into play, most notably the Rolling Thunder. We're on the opposite side. I was about to say Hunter's Fury can maybe crack open a code, but Koala Noob once again flexing his muscles here at B main.
Yeah, he is actually the #1 player ACS overall for Split 1 and this tournament combined. So Koala Noob truly has been just at the same superstar level as his opponent on the other side in Oxy. Top 3 in almost every other category you can think of when it comes to damage dealing and fragging. And so now to see him start getting worn up with the defensive operator is certainly good news for M80. As we are going to see G2 trying to re-aggress B lobby a little bit here. Thanks to Shazam. He's able to
nice.
get the reveal and the spam onto EU to get it back to a 4 versus 4. And the spike's not even here. He's doing such a great job. And a big miss from Koala Noob gives Shazam a chance to maybe even do some more damage, but the pistol will come in there for Koala Noob. But now he's got to worry about the rest.
Koala Noob seems to want it, though. Trying to back away. Oxy quick on his backside. Will secure the trade 3v3, but Xander, mid-map, turns the tides back to M80. Oxy, how far forward are you willing to play here? He steps away from the Rolling Thunder. Nobody checks him in the side, but the trade is out. Now it's just down to Penny, trying to shrug off the concussive effects to the 1v2. No, not going to happen. Xander at range predicts it, and M80 now get a couple in a row.
Beautiful double face there to make sure that they don't let Penny get any type of soloed out duel. That was a wild ride because Shazam looks like he was getting a lot of work done on the B side, especially when he gets the wall spam and Koala misses that first op shot. He eventually gets the frag though, and Oxy chases him down, and you start to kind of wonder how things are going to play out. G2 are a little bit indecisive. They seem like they wanted to kind of fake the B and just go A, but when Oxy gets the frag on Koala, it's like, okay, it's time to pivot this spike over. And again, that's the strength of having that mid control. It gives you that option to kind of bounce back and forth. The problem is that M80 just limited Oxy's impact. He only got that one frag playing up close on market, and that allowed M80 to have the main advantage on the rest of the retake. As you can see, G2 suffering the repercussions we were talking about earlier when it comes to economy. They're coming to this with 3 stingers and just this blade storm on Oxy.
Also a Hunter's Fury, though, so if you can get the spike planted, there is a little bit more security off the post plant.
Look at how much space he's getting.
I'm telling you, he's just walking in. Oh, and he nearly catches Xander, wants to dash into him, finds the headshot over the top. Oh, Oxy nearly confirms more, but with that, a chance to get himself a rifle. Quality still down low. Lucky to be alive after that peek from Oxy, and here's the plant. Look at the post-plant setup. Shazam is playing deep towards Wine. He will have the Hunter's Fury in case things get dicey.
Yeah, it's a 5-on-4 post plan here, and G2's still kind of giving M80 a taste of their own medicine, these fast-paced contact plays. That's what M80's known for. That's their playbook. But again, G2 is certainly capable of playing the up-tempo style and using it to their edge as they get flushed out of under heaven by the aftershock, but they're able to get right back in, but John Cutie does frag one, so it's back to even.
Koala Noob with the knives, whiffing completely, and Whippy nearly turns that into what would have been 2 assists or 2 kills. Nanostorm also a part of it as Nismo falls. 2v2 situation. There's your shock darts. Dapper watching the cross. Nice crossfire coming through. Not enough time for John to consider the defuse. And how about that for a little half buy from G2 to get to 6?
Man, it's just all about Oxy again, just being that driving force to get forward onto A side. Gets a beautiful entry, nearly finds Koala Noob as well, allows him to get in and get the spike down, and then again it's just Shazam continuing to play this insurance policy setup, I guess you could call it, in line with the double shock guard. Even had a Hunter's Fury if it was going to be required. And G2, we have seen guard kind of fight back and, you know, close the gap on the scoreboard. G2 have never let M80 take control of the half. They've always steered themselves out in front. They've kept themselves out of some really tough moments. And that was one right there. I mean, they were playing that round mostly stingers. I mean, it was really on Oxy to get the entry with the Blade Storm to give them some hope. And then once they collected the fallen rifles, they were able to make things happen. So, yeah, Oxy right now leaping far above Koala Noob.
Dude, he's got 13 yesterday. Yep. In 24 rounds, he had 15. You want to talk about coming out with some fire. I mean, almost matching the total number of kills in a long Game 3 yesterday in the lower finals before the half is over. Like, again,
I just can't even recall a time where he lost his opening engagement. Yeah. When he has been looking for an entry, he's found it just about every time. I mean, I know Koala's had a couple of first kills with the operator, but it usually hasn't been against him. It's been against someone else kind of lurking in B lobby or something like that, like, you know, Dapper or Shazam or something along those lines. So, man, oh man. Starting with fireworks here, as G2 is not even a team we thought would be in these grand finals, if we're being honest.
True. And again, it's not like a shame on them in any form. It's just the way that the groups kind of shook out. Again, it kind of had a lingering sense of strength towards one group over another. But here so far, G2 have definitely impressed. The other interesting thing to kind of keep our eye on as this map goes on, Oxy does not usually snipe on this map, so you're not going to get a lot of those jet v jet battles, which Koala Noob typically is always desperate for.
That is a good point. Definitely likes to be more dynamic by playing the rifle, especially on the attacking side. You definitely could see some defensive opping from him, no doubt about that. As G2 looking to gather up for just a straight-up B set piece here. EU playing from the back halls with John Cutie on the stairs, trying to set up some counter utility if they start feeling the pressure. They have a star that could try to slow the attack down, as well as that fault line prawn ready to go. As here comes the hit, here comes the counter utility, as well as Hunter's Fury, paving a way forward, though, for Oxy to get onto the site.
That last dart did, connected onto both players. Oxy on 1 HP for now. Stuck by the decay. John Cutie just trying to keep his own life, delaying time. Lots of utility thrown out. Oxy, the first one to fall. John still looking to hold on. Good flash to try to give him a bit more space, but the trade comes through. We go 4v4. Plant now on the way, but M80 look like they may want to go quickly. Null command pop. That's from the offensive side. Oh my goodness, the team damage coming through this wall has Whippy down to a bullet, but still alive. And Shazam takes care of Nismo. Opportunity for this little double stack towards B main to still become a major problem towards this retake. Koaladoo still finding a way to get through. 2v2 situation. G2 have to come back forward. Shock dart connects. Xander for the 1v1. Now it's on to Shazam. And he's got the spike built for him. And yeah, little spray through the smoke in the box. Gets G2 up to 7-3.
Dude, the evolution of Shazam as a Sova has just been a beautiful thing. His utility usage this year has been phenomenal. Just when he chooses to use his recon and shock darts and how he's able to implement them so quickly to gain edges and engagements, it has been a thing of beauty throughout the year, and certainly it has been a big X factor as he is right behind Oxy. In fact, he has a better KD, 13-4 to 13-8 of Oxy. Obviously, Oxy just, really killing it on the ACS with these entries. But man, he has had a heck of a game, and again, that's great news for G2 because Shazam's not normally one of the ones top of the charts. He's certainly capable, though, right? We know that he's been able to do that in the past when he was in IGL Sentinels in VCT.
Lots of information here. Oh, Koala
No
Noob.
way.
You can respect the idea, but there was help from Whippy keeping Shazam alive. Not a lot of extra information, though, on how M80 are still set up through B main and in it, for that matter. EU with the Sheriff could possibly be a problem. Vault line comes out. Shazam tagged again, but Whippy trying to save another life. Okay.
How does he keep doing it, man? He was stunned both times and played Guardian Angel regardless, and now this cat aggression from Eddie is getting absolutely punished. Oxy takes one, Dapper finishes the other with a nano, and now all that's left is John Cutie here in a 1v4 with the Sheriff, and that's not gonna do. As now G2 up 8-3.
Yeah.
My goodness. This could potentially be one of their biggest attacking halves ever. Their record right now is 9 attacking rounds against Oxygen. They have a chance to tie that if they can win this last round.
Something must have clicked after last night's lower final. The guard put 6 straight defensive rounds together, and it looked like G2 was going to be down and out after that. But something must have changed. The 4 in a row to finish off the map, and now you come right back into today, starting off with an 8-3 so far. Have to have this if you're M80. You go down 9-3. I know the Reddit's going to be sitting here saying 9-3 curse opportunity, but man, the way G2 is playing, I don't know. And Shazam will be sniping here in round 11.
Again, he has a history of it being a sniping Sova. He did it on Bind all the time last year. And so there he goes.
Deep pockets. He had a a rifle waiting for him as well. Talk about his ability to afford it.
That's so awesome to be able to do that. And now they're just going to be able to set up now for the A set piece. There are 3 players looking to defend against us, however. But Oxy battling through the utility with the dash into his cloud burst. He's staying alive, waiting for the right moment. The strike swings and finally loses a fight. John Cutie slows his attack down.
Oh, G2 are trying to turn tail and run, but look at the hit. EU's actually in a pretty solid spot to get a read if they do cross over towards middle, but no, G2 will kill the noise and restack for a second attempt. They still have a lockdown. They still have a constant divide on the other side. Xander could respond with one villain. He hits this off the rip. Oh, okay.
And that destroys the plan of G2 because they were actually shuffling the operator back over. They were looking for an open and pick, but this cosmic divide will stop them from being able to do that. Lockdown does get put into play. Trying to get the defense at base so they can get in on the site. Penny gets one, but that is it. Everything else going M80's way.
How about the shots from Xander? Okay, a final triple from M80 out of Xander. Just kind of backing off the lockdown, and M80 stay alive. 8-4 goes the half as we swap sides.
Yeah, and we got to talk about Xander, man, because Qualanoob, EU, and Nismo were kind of the leading three, statistically speaking, for M80 throughout the first split. But during this mid-season face-off, Xander has been within the top 5 for ACS, ADR, KD, and KPR. He has been phenomenal for M80, as well as Qualanoob continuing that trend of being a star performer, of course. But yeah, Xander has really stepped up in this midseason face-off, and of course we always knew that he could. He has always been a strong fragging controller player. It's just, I think M80 were in earlier in the split, before they faced the guard, they were just having Qualanoob steamroll people that they didn't really need Xander to frag out in the mid to late round scenarios. Now that's kind of getting slowed down a bit more. Now Xander has a little bit more breathing room to show what he's capable of, and man, oh man, has he.
I will say as well, just kind of talking about M80, you talk about 3 initiators in their composition. You expect them to find success on the offensive side, maybe even more so than defensively, just based on the agents that are in battle.
Yeah, again, it's interesting because M80 have only ever started on the defensive side, and they've had to try to make comebacks in the attack, and last time they were able to, with 8 rounds against Moist Moguls. There are other times they had so many defensive rounds, they didn't really have to do so much on the attacking side to finish the job. They usually average around 9 defensive rounds. So the fact that they got limited to 4 is the worst situation they've been put in yet on this map.
Line out on also there. Nanostorm will deny any entry through the side alleyway. Door shut on mid-market, and M80 will take the scenic route in towards site. Just as comfortably, though. John QE trying to keep safe the flank, and Oxy just hits a one-tap with the ghost. So now G2's retake, for a moment, had numbers. The Shazam drops, so it gets to a 4v4. Spike planted. M80 suppressed for now. Koala looking for a couple of shoulders, does see some information on who's coming through the side alleyway. Not necessarily that's a full commitment, though. Dashing in is Oxy, looking to kind of find first contact and first blood here. But the trades coming back and forth. Pinch shot goes to Killfeed. 2v2 we go. Qualanoob, the last one left, and he uses that too low of HP to hold. And with that, G2 take both pistols.
That was just a beautiful move from Oxy, dashing into his cloudburst in the corner after it had been cleared by Penny's fragment. And then he pops out with the flash because it allows them to basically, instead of just having a single file attack coming through sidewalk, you get to split the battle up into 2 angles. And it allows G2 to find some favorable fights inside the site to eventually complete the retake. Obviously, the flank coming in so fast and taking down John Cutie immediately was a big factor. And so G2 now had a hot start first half, and it looks like they're looking to do the same thing here. Minor investment. Qualanoob is going to pick up the Marshall. John Cutie thought about playing with the Sheriff, but sells it back, it looks like. And now he buys it back again. And we got a Guardian out now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second Guardian pick.
This is an interesting little mixed buy here from M80.
Trying to use this to maybe even get into mid a bit more. Oxy's the one currently watching it. Support from Alarmbot in front. Contact made, but no, the shot does not land. But of course, now the information for G2 that there is a long-range weapon has been known.
Indeed. And M80, again, a very explosive team, are going to waste no time gathering up here and just looking to take this hit on a site. There are 2 members, though, at tree position that are waiting for this cross. G2, Shazam able to get in, Penny able to as well.
Oh, and the gravity well set up so perfectly by Whippy, because there was a moment where Penny looked like he was about to be dead to rights, but help arrives at the very right moment. And G2 not just get the round, but they survive with a lot of members still standing.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, especially when you're thinking Qual's coming into a situation like this with the Marshall, like it's just not really conducive to fighting those close quarters battles, and you hit the nail on the head. That Grevwell combination with that fragment just ran them through the blender, basically. And M80 on a full buy here, and it doesn't work. I mean, G2 are on the road to a map point here very quickly, so this is a critical round for M80's attacking side.
This, the one following that, and maybe even the one after that, just to get them back into the mix here.
They need to get on a roll for sure.
Yes.
Again, they've never had to play from this far behind on the attacking side of this map, so this is new territory for them. As G2 continue to impress through that lower bracket run. Again, we really thought the Guard had a great chance of getting the rematch against M80 in this grand finals, but G2, through perseverance, forced kind of Guard to crumble and then eventually topple them over to get the dub, and that's why they're here now. And this is their first crack at kind of the other top 2 team in the region in M80. If they can get this win too, then all of a sudden it's up for debate who really is #1 team in Challengers.
Yeah, keep your eye on Oxy here, because as soon as the Ascension turret makes point of contact, Oxy will be able to make the decision. Does he want to go down the quick flank or return back to market? And he is going to go for the quick flank. So this is all about trying to get this player out of B main first. He's got Shazam going to mid-market side. He needs to get information off of his utility. And this point of contact with EU is going to be everything. There's the contact. Oxy trying to follow up, dashes forward. EU still alive. He needs help, though. Needs help badly. Flash comes through. Oxy finds the first blood. Spike planted. 5v4 though. G2 on the retake. There is still Nismo in the corner. Xander actually keeps him concealed. Nobody knows that Nismo's here. Nismo's going to get a double from this position. Koala Noob follows up, and the sneaky robot is the one that helped shut down the retake. M80 take the round.
Yeah, man, and a desperately needed one at bat, but they get it done again. G2, a great little concept at first to kind of run down EU here and get this opening frag when the retake gets started. But as you said, Xander allows Nismo to stay hidden. And he finds the perfect moment to strike to close that round off from G2. We got Oxy on Bladestorm, full rifles for everyone else on the G2 side of things. No ults available just yet for M80, but they're not far off. Having a Cosmic Divide, a null command, and the Bladestorm for Koala Noob. And that just helped out their economy in a big way.
Oh, yeah. I think you'd have to prefer getting the null command probably over the Cosmic Divide if you're looking at this Remedy's perspective, if at all possible. We'll see. Prowler's out first through A. No shots towards it. Guard being placed. Baldim's just going to go quick. Updraft dash right on top of the spike site. Gonna be in trouble. Bottom side health still alive though, and he gets an elimination. Unbelievable trades lead to an exact 2v2. Knife still out for Oxy. Tries to protect EU in the corner. Right clicks are dealing some damage. John and EU, a combined 64 health. Still a couple of knives left. One connection away from a reset, likely onto either player. Long route from Dapper as he clears out wide, and Oxy will get to floating. Dapper trying to find contact, gets the first. Shot's not quite there. EU though does drop in. Oxy will just spam through the floorboards to take down both. G2 get to 11.
Yeah, M80 don't get a chance to breathe any type of sigh of relief. Immediately, the wind's taken right back out of their sails. The G2 just putting on a clinic on that A defense and retake. I mean, it looked like a well-organized attack from M80. Quality gets that 4 position on top of Generator. They have a great fragment that's put that pressure on Whippy underneath Heaven. You think that this is, you know, M80 doing all they need to do to dislodge that defense and give them a chance to get some openers and get the spike down. But the fact that Whippy gets one, despite getting melted by a fragment and getting forced into no man's land. And then Shazam's able to play off of that to basically get G2 into a winnable 2-on-2 situation. Oxy able to get some pretty good intel. Dapper has the flank, and there you go. It's all over. G2 1 away from map point here. And Eddie take the timeout. Again, they do have some credit still available thanks to their round win in the previous, but it's going to be very strained, and if they, you know, get into a situation where G2 wins and gets the map point, they'll have nothing left, really. Agreed. So this is basically do or die right now for M80, and this is a perfect time to call the timeout to kind of sort that out.
And you're going to have plenty of ultimates to consider here to get through not just this round, but hopefully a couple in a row, I think, if you're M80. Whereas on the other side, I mean, the whole team is just sitting here, I am sure, ear to ear, smiling to see Oxy at double positive.
Placing swarm grenade.
An absolute takeover mode this map. But you see it, Bladestorm, Null Command, Cosmic Divide ready for M80. Just the Null Command for now available for the defensive G2, although we've got a couple of members close, most notably Shazam and Whippy towards the Hunter's Fury and the Cosmic Divide, respectively.
Get out of my way.
Yeah, you see M80 looking to maybe try to force some early control over towards B lobby, but they have been now suppressed. And so things kind of slow down a bit. The lurking Xander over on the A side of the map. But the rest looking to, again, gun out at B once this utility starts to fade away from G2 defensively.
Scanning ahead.
Xan just keeps stalling them, though, at this utility. Now he gets a little bit of a read with that.
I think he tags all 3 over here, I'm not going to lie.
Yep.
So now, all of a sudden, M80 kind of have to commit. Cosmic Divide's going to come through. Full commands out. Fragment will stop the initial push through. And honestly, that counters the entire Cosmic Divide. Now everyone's going back towards Dapper's direction. Oh, but he does get suppressed on this retoggle of the null command. EU predicts it, finds first blood. The only defender left is Whippy, playing close towards this barrier, the Cosmic Divide. Xander shoulder to shoulder with him, just on the other side of the box. Whippy stunned, flashed for now, and just can't quite shake off the effects. 2 for 2 go the trades, but numbers still stay with M80. As it's just down to Penny, 17 HP. Nisma will secure the plan, and this is a very hard-pressed 1v3 to come through, although some members are low. Just no utility for Penny to work their way back in safely. So these would have to be some unbelievable shots. High-low stack will be what causes him to fall, and M80 stay alive here.
Yeah, really well done. You could tell just by how they placed that Cosmic Divide that the goal the whole time really was to go back to A. It wasn't really a conducive Cosmic Divide to being able to press, to switch, or to be stairs. It would have been a sidewalk push only, and then you have to come through your own divide onto site. So you kind of tell that they were looking to fake B the entire time and make that pivot, and they do so very well. Particularly catching Dapper in that catwalk corner was huge, and honestly, Dapper's had a bit of a struggle in comparison to the rest of his time in this mid-season face-off. Yeah. And this is the defensive side where he usually shines, so I have to kind of keep an eye on that. But obviously this round, G2 on a bit of a save here, just the Spectre and Sheriff on Shazam.
You would assume that M80 would be favored to get to 7, but look how forward Dapper's gotten over towards B main.
Bring them down.
Yeah, the turret to kind of be a little bit of a bodyguard. That Prowler is going to force him back, though, and now his turret's been destroyed.
Oh, and well, breakdown here, yeah.
That's good and gone. You understand it, though. G2 trying to, force a little bit of something on a pretty much save round, but, M80 just, are minding their P's and Q's. They're covering both peripheries of the map, playing disciplined. Penny able to grab one, but that should be about it.
Yeah, 4 HP. You got Shazam, though, with the Sheriff working around the back. If he could hit this flank, get a little bit of help from the rest of his defenders from the front, maybe there's a chance to do something here to make this more punishing, but Xander just runs and guns through Dapper on the cross and the Nebula. Now you're in a 2v4 situation. Shazam, Bulldog picked up. Ahead. Brings a little bit of deadly force into the last stages of this round. 2v3, Hunter's Fury is ready. One flash as well from Penny, who's still alive. And Shazam's going shopping. A little 5-finger grab bag here outside of A. Still on the corner. Held for now. Flashes out. Doesn't quite connect. EU finds the kill, and now Penny, left to 4 HP, could only do so much as the Nebula gets sprayed down and M80 get to 7.
Yeah, it's certainly crafty from G2. Gave themselves some chance to do some damage and maybe throw a spanner in the works, but M80 fend that off pretty well. Just being able to counter this aggression, no problem. Playing disciplined Valorant, kind of understanding that there was a good chance G2 were going to be looking to try to pull off something since it was a save, but now we're back to equal buys. Oxy, defensive operator in play, so that is a little bit of a change up here for G2. First time they've had that.
Little mid control coming out of M80. Look at the setup difference, though, for G2. There's no alarm bot here at mid. It is all stacked for this hallway play. So G2 are going to be well prepared for this. Nightfall's going to come out. This is going to lead to M80 trying to get aggressive. Oxy still over the top. Sees the float of Koala who finds first blood. But M80 are still committing through this. And there's all the utility trying to be triggered to stall this out a little longer. M80 wandering in the sight. Nismo in the corner. Gets a lot of damage into Dapper, but the spike is not here. So these flashes, even though they're trying to come through, M80 aren't fully committed to getting into sight yet. And G2 are here trying to defend. They've got a Cosmic Divide and numbers. The former being used immediately as M80 try to hold the front door. G2 looking to split things back up. They're going to go to a 2-2 setup. 2 through market, 2 from the back. And well, a lot of this Cosmic Divide will not really be utilized to do much besides isolate B main. Recon Bolt out though, gets some good reveal. Nismo revealed by that, but Xander responds to the first in this engagement. Trades coming back and forth. We'll go to a 2v1. Whippy by himself, stunned up. Rolling Thunder, and possibly an ult command if they need it, but you think you just take this one with just straight weaponry, especially considering the time is ticking away.
One enemy remaining.
Whippy does find one, but no time to take the second. He'll back off.
Man, that was a labored one for M80, but they do get it across the finish line. I mean, G2 did a pretty good job getting some nice initial frags on that take. Again, M80 is known for these fast-paced set pieces, so once you start seeing that utility come in, you need to brace yourself for them getting in your face. And, well, Oxy, bold as ever, stayed boosted through the ult, gets his op shot off, gets the frag, able to back up. Shazam gets one, too. So they had a 5-on-3 there for a brief moment in time. So you got to tip your hat to G2 for that initial hold, but M80 eventually figure it out. I think a lot of it really comes down to that fault line John Cutie hits on Sidewalk. Like, it basically kind of broke up the retake effort that G2 were trying to do because only half of it was able to really get engaged through Stairwell when John Cutie starts popping off his utility to block off the Sidewalk side. So good work by him with his utility usage, and obviously just good fragging from his teammates there to secure another one. And now, all of a sudden, Shift, we got ourselves a game. All of a sudden, things are starting to get a little bit tight. And now, G2 taking a timeout to start trying to figure out how they're going to hold M80 off from catching up here.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about it, and there may be something we can pull off of the last round setup from Dapper, it doesn't feel like G2 are all that worried about what's coming through mid, mostly because M80 have largely hit off the exteriors of the map. But even in that last round, you talk about the Sidewalk play, Dapper's stack up of utility on that close B main Sidewalk didn't really provide any deterrence towards M80. So maybe there's some conversation on how do we help out for these exterior plays if Dapper setup isn't enough.
Now, in this round, there's not a whole lot to be done. Whippy with that one save, the Phantom, and then everyone else is going to be on Sheriffs. No alts available. M80, in the meantime, has 2 at their disposal if they decide to use them. Defensive aggression from G2 at middle here. Oh, boy.
Oxy's caught with a knife out. Wallenoob does at least secure one trade, and the hero rifle that was brought in by Whippy will now be collected by Penny after he's only able to get one. But we've got a 3v3 situation. 2 rifles are enhanced now for G2. They will not be able to fully contest the plant at A, but boy, will they have some formidability on the retake.
Absolutely, and they're slowing down this attack even with some of the utility that they've thrown down to allow them to get a little bit more time to set this flank in from Shazam and get other players in position for the retake. One door, one heaven. Again, Shazam looking to flank. I think a lot of this comes down to Shazam and what he's able to accumplish.
On the other
all
side,
down to
M80,
timing.
They are all about trying to block something off from this tree door. Hiding in the nebula. One Thunder used to guard the flank, but the reveal strong. Oxy trying to catch the corner. Oh goodness, this gets completely bamboozled by Kawaladu, who went high. And even though Shazam has been good with his utility, he will not be able to get through the 1v3, and now we're down to a 2-round game.
Kawaladu pulling off the tricks, man. Had a bit of a slow start this game, if we're honest. Oxy outshining him through the bulk of this game, but Koala's starting to have a couple of big moments now. And Nismo and Xander, as consistent as ever, continuing to deliver. But we're back to a full buy for G2, back to an operator for Oxy, Odin out for Shazam. The old classic combo, Sova, Odin, B-site, Ascents. A tale as old as time, Shift.
It really is. Since like day one.
For real. Literally day one.
Yeah.
Wait, well, I mean, this map wasn't out day one, but...
Well, day one of the map.
Yeah. Pretty quickly it was figured out.
Yeah, good point. Recon bolt gets deleted. Just the single shot deals with it, so not a lot of information off of that in any form. And look how far back G2 are playing defensively over towards A. This is almost kind of their idea of saying
they're willing to play
get
retake.
a little bit of a lean, yeah.
Yeah, they're willing to play retake A, and they're hoping that their utility can kind of slow down the B attack, allow them rotations. And yeah, indeed, it was a good reveal. Some spam damage coming in. This is a great nanoswarm to slow the attack down. Dapper avoiding a lot of the attacking utility, able to step out and grab a big frag.
Gets a bit of vulnerability off his gravity well that was right in front with me following in. Spike down. Trades for M80 though. Solid. 3v2. Knives out for M80. Nismo the last one standing for the 1v2. He's got a lot of work to be done here.
Yeah, Spike is so far out of reach right now. And Oxy's playing very disciplined. He's not giving them anything. He is waiting it out.
Too suppressed.
Suppressed, but Oxy still has an op and a pistol,
left.
so it's not too big of a deal for him.
And there's really not much Nismo can do to close the gap on that anyways.
No.
Fragment. Just to make sure no one's holding the post staircase. Pushes through it. Nice shot on the first. Knives out. And no, Nismo had a look at the gunfight, but Oxy doesn't miss. I will say.
That was a bold move, Cotton. I'll tell you that right now. That guy
Let's
was like,
see if it works
"This is the
out for
only
him."
play I got, dude. It didn't work out for him. Spoiler alert. But I mean, hell, like I don't mind the play. I mean, he had to do something magical to try to reel that one back in, considering where the spike was and considering that he was in a tough spot. And you know, just that I'm sure that caught Whippy completely off guard.
Yeah.
But luckily, Oxy was there to respond. As Nizzo, of course, ate plenty of damage to get that fight on Whippy. So now G2 have 3 map points to try to finish this thing off in regulation. And M80, not the best buy, man. Stinger and a Sheriff on EU.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get
looking
quality of these
good.
knives, right? And then hand the
Yes.
rifle over. That has to be the priority.
Oh, 100%. Cosmic Divide, maybe to try to help you get into a site, obviously. But now the Killjoy setup has been rotated as well as some Astra Stars. So it's like G2 had the perfect read on pivoting their defensive utility.
Patience echoes across. Sent for the moment. There's the fault line. Quality is not going to go for the knives. He's just going to run in. Interesting. Cosmic Divide will try to block Dapper on the counter with the lockdown. Utility now bisecting over this A site. John considered the plant, but decided otherwise because he's got to go a long way to stay alive. So G2 will hold off the hit. But M80 have time to rotate back as Oxy watches through mid.
Yeah, Oxy has a great pull on any type of rotation that would come through middle, and Shazam is at B link to be able to spot the spawn rotation, and again, he has found it. So G2 have a read, and actually Shazam able to get into a really good position to get back into B lobby, and it's kind of funneling M80 back
30
towards A where
seconds
there's
left.
still utility available for G2 to shut this down, plus the bulk of their personnel still resides here on the site.
Line comes through again. Fragment does connect up top. M80 get the first eliminations. Penny from the side could only do so much. So now a 4v2 situation through the Nebula. And Oxy was looking for the quick scope, but it's going to come up a bit empty. John for
10
now the
seconds
plan.
left.
Shazam, Oxy, last two left, 2v4 situation. They don't necessarily have to commit to this with credits low for a number of members.
That's a
They
save.
very well may just back off, and that seems to be the case.
Yeah, might as well. Keep that op in Oxy's hands. Keep that rifle for Shazam. M80 just did a great job when they backed off, went silent, and started putting pressure at middle and through spawn towards B. It broke that defense back up. It kind of forced Shazam to respect that they could be rotating to B. It kind of kept Oxy in middle as opposed to rotating to reinforce A. And so it did just come down to the three members of G2 that were already on A site. But remember, a lot of their utility had already been spent pushing
Correct.
off the first attack. And so it really was just going to come down to gun battles at that point. And M80 able to kind of just brute force their way through, as that's kind of M80 in a nutshell. They just have those individually skilled players who are willing to just go out there and trade. They're very decisive in that way, and their spacing and timing is usually very good, and that's why they're one of the best teams in Challengers is, again, they can just play that oppressive play style where they can just swarm you and really get things chaotic and make it tough to react. And yeah, G2, actually, that's all they really have is this Op and Vandal. Shorty for Whippy. See what kind of trickery he's going to be up to with that.
Yeah, for real. Well, looks like it's going to be kind of a double setup over towards A with the Shorty. M80 still pretty primed off the opening barrier drop to take at least a look over towards mid. Nebulas will encompass both Catwalk and the Archway. Allows Quality to walk forward, but there is really not much defensive pressure here, save just that Shorty with Penny's Classic kind of trying to assist however it may be able to do.
Yeah, they're trying for a bait and switch. They're hoping
Yeah.
that they can draw someone in and allow Whippy to pop off with the Shorty as the follow-up, but it's going to be a tough ask as M80 are just kind of waiting. They're just sitting to see if G2 are going to go for something aggressive here. Shazam is going to drone out middle. He spots absolutely nothing. Everyone remains hidden. The door goes down at market. G2 trying to limit what they have to worry about.
Yep.
They'll keep a forward angle on B lobby with a couple of their players, and that is where M80 is gathering up. But they have such a massive firepower advantage, but there's still that chance Oxy could pop off with the op.
But Dapper's trying to get Oxy the aim. Dollar out. Shot misses, though. Dash charge, second opportunity. That one lands. Fault line does not quite connect. Oxy still has a chance to make more. Punish happen. He gets the second, and then the dash through. Knives are out. Oh, my goodness. Oxy gets 4, and Penny finishes off map 1 in electric style. G2 up 1-0 early.
I mean, that is just the epitome of Oxy right there. Just the most insane decision-making in mechanics in such a critical moment. To miss the first shot, but then keep his composure, back off, get the shot, dodge the fault line, cloud burst yourself into a new opping and go get that, dash out, Shorty out a couple. I mean, good Lord, dude. Like, what do you do against that when that man's on fire like that? I mean, he just bulldozed them, bro. I mean, impressive performance from G2. They're collecting scalps right now that not many people said that they could. I mean, G2 certainly seemed to be a very clear, like, top 3, top 4 team in the region based on just how they were playing the first split. But they looked like an underdog when it came to, you know, playing against M80 or the Guard.
Sure.
They've already proven that wrong against the Guard yesterday. Granted, I would say the Guard kind of crumbled a bit on Ascent. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not trying to take anything away from G2. I'm just saying. But that was decisive win for G2. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. Like, that was theirs from the get-go. I mean, they got ahead pretty early. They had hot starts both halves. They never really lost control of the game in any single moment. Yeah, sure, M80 was able to close the distance, but M80 never, were out of the driver's seat. They were always dictating the pace of that game. And wow, that was impressive.
Just appropriate that Oxy comes out, top frags for his team, and gets them over the finish line for map number 1. Again, a best of 5 series. That was G2's selection, so hell of an effort from M80. Just a touch too short. So with that, we send things over to break. We have the dash to break it down and set us up for map number 2. Don't go anywhere. We've got the mid-season face-off grand finals continuing right after this.
Got him. Bye. One enemy remaining. Give me those guys. One enemy remaining. Yikes.